going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast, where we cover all things NASCAR regional from coast to coast. As always, here in the MRN studios, my name is Chris Wilner, MRN pit reporter. Of course, Kyle Rickey out in Connecticut, MRN announcer. K-Rick, we are getting ready for we are really in the middle of the biggest week of motorsports, stretching coast to coast. There's events all over the place, and not just events of small stature, but major marquee motorsports events, of course, all culminating with Memorial Day weekend, the Indianapolis 500, the Coke 600, one driver, Kyle Larson, doing both. And we've actually got a special guest coming up here in segment number 2. Joining us in studio is going to be Kyle Larson's spotter, Tyler Monn, one of those doing the double with Kyle. We're going to talk about his preparation for that and, of course, what it's been like here as a racer from up in New England, getting the shot at the big time, just like Kyle is here coming up this weekend. But, Kyle, first off, how was your weekend? Obviously, Stafford is alive and well, and I think the weather's good, right?
Yeah, we had a great second Friday night weather-wise. Mother Nature is finally cooperating. Unfortunately, a lot of the other short tracks got rained out Saturday and Sunday. I know the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour race was affected by rain. Down at the Riverhead Raceway, the Seekonk Speedway in Massachusetts was rained out. So, unfortunately, not everybody escaped, but we're not complaining at the Stafford Speedway. A nice, sunny, low humidity night to begin the weekend last week.
Yeah, and summer is officially here in Charlotte, by the way, because if it's not raining, it's been about 90 degrees, hot, sticky, so summer's officially here. And speaking of rain, kudos to everybody that was out at North Wilkesboro Speedway, including our Motor Racing Network crew, because that was some of the most intense downpours of rain I've ever seen, but whether it was Friday night or even on Saturday when we had the whole racetrack flooded. But kudos to everybody who was up there sticking it out, one, but two, for the entire crew at North Wilkesboro to help the fans out with the gravel and getting everything dried up and ready to go this weekend. We'll kind of talk about that weekend here coming up. Of course, this broadcast...
You didn't jump off the pit wall, did you?
No, that was not me. Everybody was like, Wilner, was that you? No, that was a crew member for, I believe, Chase Purdy. You couldn't pay me to do that, especially when I saw a porta potty floating not too far from there. So, God only knows what was in the water. But hey, you know what? To each their own. They were having a good time. Hopefully, they washed their clothes several times. This broadcast, by the way, brought to you by Whelen Engineering. Manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering coming on board again here with Coast to Coast. We thank them for that. But let's get to the weekend that was, Kyle. Of course, NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, you just alluded to it, affected a little bit by rain. We did get the event in. The Miller Lite Salutes Wayne Anderson 200 out at Riverhead, the first of 3 stops up there on Long Island. Same thing, it's not like a broken record, Ronnie Silk dominating, but he did have a little bit of a late race surge by Austin Beers. Of course, I think even Ronnie Silk was a little nervous, maybe hit a muffler on the racetrack too. Thought he had some damage, but he was okay. But what were your thoughts about the tour being up there at Riverhead?
Like straight over the muffler. Yeah. Everybody thought this might be the only thing that can stop, or at least slow down, Ronnie Silk today, and that was not the case. He took the lead early, I believe lap 30, for the most part, led the rest of the event. A really good race. The NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour kind of in their short track swing right now, with Monadnock last week, Riverhead this week, Seekonk in just over a week's time. Silk's going to be hard to beat. That team is hitting on all cylinders right now, whether it be in practice, qualifying, or the race. If they can get to the front of the field and find their way to the front, they're probably going to stay there. Justin Bonsignor, who is usually the king of Riverhead, I mean, it was a racetrack that he grew up on, wasn't really much of a factor at the front of the field all afternoon. So congratulations to Ron, early championship favorite, and no doubt the class of the field right now when it comes to modified racing, just not on the NASCAR Modified Tour, but in all the different series up here in the Northeast region.
Yeah, and the field wasn't given any favors with qualifying rained out. That put Ron Silk on the pole by virtue of points. So unfortunately, the cards are stacked against the field from the jump. But Justin Bonsignor, as you talked about, finished third. Of course, he was going for tying the record of the most all-time wins up there at Riverhead Speedway with, I believe, Ted Christopher. Unfortunately, was unable to get that accomplishment this year. But he did make some big news this week, Kyle. He is now going to be the next short track racer getting a shot at the big time. Of course, making news this week, he will be running the NASCAR Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing at New Hampshire. Of course, a place that the Tour races at, and of course, a place he knows awful lot about. So, What do you think? Justin Bonsignore, I think everybody pointed to, Bubba Pollard back when we started this kind of trend. He got his shot. Carson Kvapil got his shot. And now we see another legend of NASCAR regional racing in Justin Bonsignore.
Yeah, and I think the trend here in particular kind of started with one of Justin's best friends, and Ryan Preece, when he got that 4 or 5 race opportunity a couple of years ago, New Hampshire being one of those events, Iowa being an event, Bristol, I think, and he finished like first, second, and fourth in 4 of those races. And look where it has led several years later to a NASCAR Cup Series ride. Hopefully that can maybe happen to Justin. We'll see. I know seats are limited, and this right now is a one-off attempt at trying to see what he can do in NASCAR's National Series and trying that series out. But, talked to him earlier this week at an event up here in the Northeast, and he's optimistic that there are other events that will follow. So this is not just going to be Loudon, but he's working on maybe 2 or 3 more events before the end of this season. So we'll see.
Things you like to hear, that's for sure. Congratulations to Justin. Jake Johnson, of course, who won on the last time out the tour, was in action, and Old Blue finished 6th, and Tim Connolly made his 200th career start. Pretty cool stuff. The tour's next back in action at Seekonk. They have the week off. It'll be June 1st on Saturday, so 2 Saturdays from now coming up on Flow Racing. NASCAR Canada, Kyle, we had the GM, Alan LaBrosse, on the show last week. They are off and rolling. Record crowd at CTMP up north of the border, which was awesome to see. I mean, obviously, we talked about the surge of momentum for this series over the last couple of years, but it was in visual proof with the amount of people out there watching the season opener. Watch Marc-Antoine Camirand get the season win on a green-white checkered. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way, Kyle, right? Season opener, a green-white checkered finish full of drama.
And a record field. And a lot of that drama began with about, 12, 11 laps to go when Kevin Lacroix was leading. Not by a lot, but he was the car to beat at the time of the race, and suddenly it just broke. Pulled off to the left side of the course, I believe down in turns 2 and 3 on the backside, and they had to throw the caution flag. Marc-Antoine Camirand then took the race lead, and Cameron was able to hold off the rest of the field. A record field, I believe we heard last week, 31 cars were entered, 30 started. Nobody really got tore up outside of a couple of mechanical issues. So that's a good thing when you look ahead to the rest of the summer. Teams aren't behind before they even really get going. Gary Clute was among the top 5 the entire event, along with LP Dumoulin. So great race to open up the NASCAR Pinty season, a short season. And now we have Marc-Antoine Camirand, the championship point leader.
That's right. And, of course, they'll be back in action on June 1st at Autodrome Chaudière as they continue to march through the early part of this season. Andrew Ranger, DJ Kennington, maybe not up toward the front like maybe we expected. We even heard Alan LaBrosse kind of say they are kind of the old stalwarts of the group that have been a part of NASCAR Canada for a while. We'll see if they can get a rebound next week. ARCA East, back stateside, was at Flat Rock Speedway, one of the coolest short tracks because it really is a short track, probably one of the smallest tracks that we visit over the course of the season for the Dutch Boy 150. Didn't matter to Connor Zilic. He's won on pretty much every style of racetrack, and he tamed Flat Rock Speedway with Pinnacle Racing Group yet again for his second series win of 2024. Led every single lap, Kyle. We saw Jake Finch do that at Talladega, which was an anomaly, but Connor Zilic does it at Flat Rock.
Yeah, led the entire race distance from the front row. He did tame the racetrack, as you mentioned, but had a tough time taming the field, especially the lap traffic. Had to thread the needle 3 wide a couple of different times, trying to get through traffic. There was contact both of those times. Minimal damage, obviously didn't slow him down, but it could have. So a couple of close calls there for Connor Zilic, able to take the win. A lot of long green flag runs. At one point, the race went over 100 laps without a yellow. A late race spin, like we so often see, tighten the field up for a 3-lap dash at the end. And Connor Zilic was able to come out on top.
Yeah, and of course he had to hold off the perennial or the championship favorites to challenge Connor Zilic, that being William Sawalich and Gio Ruggiero. Zilic, with that damage, still hung on to win. Of course, leading every lap, now has a 12-point championship lead over Sawalich. Gio Ruggiero back in third, 2 markers behind second. So it's still tight up at the front of the field as they next go to Iowa Speedway, one of my favorite ARCA events. The Atlas 150s are calling it this year, out at at Iowa. That's coming up on June 14th. Of course, going to kick off a huge weekend with NASCAR in town as well. So looking forward to that. ARCA East putting on another good show. Some of those drivers will be competing at Charlotte coming up this weekend. We'll talk about that in segment number 3. Now we get to North Wilkesboro before we get to our special guest of the week, Tyler Monn. And, of course, we talked about at the top of the show, the rain. It first affected the Cars Tour. Late model stocks, pro late models, unfortunately trying to get something in. I think we got a practice session in and the start of qualifying, and that's about it. And unfortunately, it was a lot of waiting around for the Cars Tour up at North Wilkesboro, Kyle. But obviously, we're still yet to get a date in terms of a rescheduled event for the Cars Tour as they continue to move on their season. But when we get to the weekend, Kyle, as somebody I was there, but I want to get your opinion from afar. What'd you think of the repave after we had all the Truck Series race and obviously qualifying in the All-Star race for NASCAR?
I agree with a lot of the drivers from the weekend that it is probably the best repave that we have seen in recent times in NASCAR. It didn't take long especially in the Truck Series race, which I guess was the first test of an event on the new pavement. For the track to really widen out. I mean, everyone thought right on the bottom, maybe a lane and a half off the bottom, but just enough banking in the corners and the pavement just grippy enough top to bottom where, I mean, the trucks were against the outside wall, running for position. So, I mean, 2 and 3 wide racing, a great job by the folks at SMI in getting that track repaved. I would love to see the Cup Series run there with a full field when you get the additional cars on the racetrack and that traffic element that we really didn't get to see a lot of with fairly short runs and only 20 cars on the racetrack or really 19 when you take Ricky Stenhouse Jr. out of the equation on lap number 2. So, great job by them. I hope we can see a points race there for the Cup Series because I think that'll be the true test.
Yeah, 100%. I think kudos to Goodyear, kudos to North Wilkesboro Speedway SMI on doing a great job on that facility. Obviously, on the truck race, you look at all of our NASCAR regional graduates, Corey Heim dominating, whether it was Friday or Saturday when we had the resumption of the race, did a nice job for his 3rd win of the season. But the big story was Brendan Butter being Queen, Kyle. We've had him on this show. We talked about, we had him live from Wilkesboro before we're trying to have him live from Wilkesboro before practice. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but he was a driver coming in that was just relishing in the opportunity, zero expectations, just wanted to do a good job for the short track community. Well, the fans spoke because they were hooting and hollering his name when he climbed out of that race truck with a top 5 finish. How cool was that? And obviously, I think this could springboard into more opportunities for Brendan.
And those are his people up there in the stands on Saturday at North Wilkesboro Speedway or Sunday morning. We knew he was going to be tough. He's got a lot of laps there in late model competition. The confidence level was high for him going in. He was with a good race team and for the most part raced among the top 10 the entire race distance, up there in the top 5 when it counted the most. I said last week that it was about time that this unbelievable short track personality could get on the national stage and people across the country could see him, and they did this weekend.
Certainly did, and that was fun to watch. Kudos to Brendan Butterby Queen doing a nice job. Obviously, Lane Riggs, another former NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts national champion, coming home with a top 5. They needed that for sure. As he talked to us last week on the show, they finally put one together to springboard Front Row Motorsports there in the Truck Series. Jake Garcia leading the first laps of his career, the former Southern Super Series champion as well with Thor Sports. So really good day for short track racing at a short track and the short track racers at North Wilkesboro. It was fun to watch, and of course, fun to see kind of how that track is going to progress moving on. All right, well, our guest is getting ready to pop into the studio. That is Tyler Monn, Cup Series crew chief for Kyle Larson, getting ready to do the double. We'll talk about his short track roots and making it to the big time, as arguably this is the biggest weekend of his career. That's coming up next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back inside the MRN studios. It is NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering, and as promised, joining us now in studio, in the flesh, the busiest guy, one of the busiest guys in motorsports right now this week. I don't know how you're here in Charlotte. Tyler Monn, spotter for Kyle Larson, and getting ready to do the double. Appreciate you being here. I know your schedule has been insane, probably more so than anybody else I can imagine at this point. But let's start back at this weekend and kind of the dress rehearsal of what this weekend's going to be like. Walk me through the logistics and just what this experience has been like for you, getting to be with Kyle through all the 1,100 miles coming up.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been pretty hectic, I guess. I just kind of tell my guys, John Edwards just kind of been in charge of where I need to be, and I've just been listening to him the whole time. But this weekend's going to be pretty wild, just I'll go back Friday. I'll fly back to Indy, do carb day. I'll fly back here that night, make the truck race spot for Jake Garcia, the truck race. Stay over Saturday, do Sammy Smith and Xfinity. We'll do cup practice and qualifying Saturday night. Then we'll fly to Indy right after. That way we're there. And then bright early morning for the Indy 500. And then we'll make it back here. So hopefully everything works out great, and hopefully the rain holds off and everything goes to plan, because I know there's a lot for the logistics to make it all work, and I know them guys are busting their tail to do it, and they come to me a lot and ask me, well, this is the plan, but it could change, right? So any plan could change, but yes, it's a lot of traveling. I was just happy to get back for a couple days, and I told somebody, it feels like it's been a month that I've been there, and it's only been a week. We went right after Darlington, and but just the days at Indy and the practices and the downtime and being out in the sun all day, it wears you out, and it makes you think, man, these days are way longer than what they really are. So, but no, I'm excited. It's a great opportunity for me.
So you couldn't find a Formula One team in Monaco, huh?
Somebody asked something about it. They were like, I forget who it was, but somebody asked, they were like, could you all do three? I'm like, no, Monica's not going to make it. I'm like, you would never make it to the Indy, or maybe the 600 you probably would make, but definitely not Indy.
So let's go back before. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I was to say, how involved were you when all of these schedules were coming together, and what kind of goes through your mind as the guy that's going to be part of, this back and forth for the better part of 2 weeks?
Yeah, a lot of involvement, right? Just leading up to it, and just knowing where my schedule needs to be, and a lot of talking with John Edwards and Ryan Glenn at Hendrick Motorsports, and just trying to, okay, when can you get back here, And obviously I missed the truck race this past weekend. My brother filled in for Jake Garcia, so and it's just stuff like that to a point where I get kind of like all lost about it. And then finally I told John Edwards the other day, I just said, hey, you tell me where I need to be, what time I need to be there, and I'll make it. I'll let you guys do all that hard work and planning. So that's what they've been doing, and they've been doing pretty good. I would say so far everything has went smooth. I know we have the big weekend coming up, but it's been pretty smooth. So a lot of involvement with me, just knowing where to be and what route to take and everything else. We did a couple dry runs for me to get to the helicopter come Sunday, and just a lot of involvement with that to get out of there. I hope I don't make that straight to the helicopter. I hope they get the route for me to victory lane for Sunday. So then we'll figure it out. But everything's been going good so far, and I think everything's planned out. Obviously it could change, but I'm ready for it.
Before we get to kind of your career this weekend, obviously, is this your first Indy 500?
This is, yeah.
In general?
In general. I've never been. Yeah.
Wow. So what are your expectations? Have you, obviously, when you prep, you're probably watching old races and things like that, but nothing prepares you for the magnitude. As somebody who's been to 18 of them growing up in Indy, nothing will prepare you for the magnitude of that event and the people. So what are your expectations going on?
Man, I've heard a lot of stories talking to Brian Campy that's calling the strategist for Kyle, and just talking to him, and and I've always heard that there's nothing like it. I've heard that from multiple people, and just not the actual race, but the atmosphere, right? Everything, the snake pit and everything else, you know what I mean? So I'm excited.
Stay away, because you'll get stuck in there.
I know. And I was talking to Jefferson Hodges, that he's spots for Joseph Newgarden, and I was talking to him, and he's like, man, the atmosphere is unreal, right, for race day. And it's been crazy how packed it's been for these practices all week and Fast Friday. I mean, people filled in. And so just the atmosphere already kind of has like just makes it like, oh, wow, like these people are like legit into their IndyCar deal and for the Indy 500. And I know it's a big deal for local people. And actually just met somebody last night. I'm on a bowling league and they're like, yeah, we're going to the Indy 500. We've been there going since 1991 or something. And but right, there's people that have go every year and it's a big deal. And I know it's a big deal. And I'm excited to be a part of it. You know, obviously I never went and watched it. So my first time I'm going to be involved with it all. But I'm looking forward to it. And it's going to be pretty exciting. Everything leading up. I'm excited for Carb Day. You know, Brian Campy kind of talked Carb Day up and stuff like that. So it's going to be wild. And I know all the yellow shirts in Indy, they are in force. So, which they do a great job. They really do. And I know that that's a big talk when we go there, all the yellow shirts, but they're full in force at this deal.
They don't mess around. You got to be nice to them. If you're nice to them, they're great. But as soon as you cross the line, good luck the rest of the month.
Exactly.
I was going to say, don't mess with them. They are nice, but until you cross them, I've been there. Where will you be on Sunday? Where is your position for the race?
I'm going to be in turn 3. So just being in turn 3, obviously, for a lot of reasons. The main reason is for me to get to the helicopter faster. So I'm going to be in turn 3. But there's a lot going on in turn 3. And you look at Indy and turn 1 and turn 3, both of them, I have Travis Gregg's going to be in turn 1, which he spotted IndyCar. I think he used to run IndyCar lights. Back then, and he's been great to work with, and we kind of gelled together right off the bat. You know, you're working with somebody you never worked with before, so it's cool to work with him, and I think we've gelled. I think Kyle likes him, and but there's a lot to it, you know what I mean? Like when they come off pit road and they go to blend on the racetrack, you know, that's up to me to just put him in a hole. And when they come off of turn 2 and they're snaking down the back straightaway, you know what I mean? That's the biggest thing is get him up in the hole come race day. And we've had a little bit of practice this past Monday, and I'm sure Carb Day this Friday we'll have good practice at doing that too. And just doing the restarts, right? The initial start is off the front straightaway, but the restarts usually are in between 3 and 4. So, a lot of responsibility. I mean, it's for both ends, but I'm looking forward to it. The only thing not so good about being in turn 3 is there's no elevator to the spotter stand. You gotta walk the steps. So.
Gotta get those steps in, huh? Yeah, I feel for you for sure on that one. But what are the nuances in terms of spotting? Obviously, you've been with Kyle now for several years, winning a championship in the Cup Series. It's a lot different than what you're going to experience on Sunday. So what have you learned is different spotting an IndyCar at IMS and working with another spotter than maybe what you would traditionally do on a Sunday? Yeah,
so just man, how fast they are. They're way faster than our Cup cars that we are used to spotting. But the runs are obviously bigger. But it's the difference between of a Cup car. When they get a run and they step out of line, you can race side by side 3 or 4 laps. IndyCar, you're not going to do that. Usually when they get a run, you see the run and they step out of line, they're pretty much passing you. You're just staying out of line, and then whether it's outside or inside, and it's stuff like that. So it's getting used to that, which I have, and the biggest thing, I guess the hardest thing that has really got to me so far, which I've studied and got used to it, is in, the Cup deal. If I say, 5 back to the 20, he knows that's Christopher Bell, to the 9, he knows that's Chase Elliott, and so on and so forth. But this, you don't call numbers, you call names. Yeah, right. So I've studied leading up to this, and just having the names right, and not only the names, but just being able to see the paint schemes and studying that. So when they come off turn 2, okay, I know that's, Newgarden or Power or Castronevit, like just a whole bunch of them. But you try to... I've studied very, very hard on this deal. I sat in the hotel room after every practice and kind of made a little cheat sheet, and just I would cover the names, and I'd have the numbers and their paint schemes, and I would test myself, and I'm pretty sure I have them all right.
Well, you've got a couple more days to figure it out.
I still got it. So that's obviously way different than spotting the Cup side. And then, working with Travis Gregg. I mean, we are used to working with other spotters for the road course stuff, right? But I've had my same guys on the 5 car for the last 4 years for the road course stuff. So I'm used to working with Colby Copeland and Anthony Warren and some other guys that we have over there. But me and Travis Gregg really have we did the test together a couple months ago, and then we've gelled very well. We just kind of known each other's language, and Kyle's been getting used to his language. Obviously, Kyle's used to hearing me every week, but it's been good so far. And just working with him, I think it's a great grouping and pairing, and I am glad that we have him. He's done the Indy 500 spotting multiple times, so that makes me feel better. I'm pretty sure makes Kyle feel better that we have somebody that has done it before. And so, yeah, that's about the difference of it so far. But yeah, I'm excited.
A place like Indy, how far ahead do you have to watch what's happening ahead of Kyle? Because I feel like things have happened so quick there. Those cars just snap around. I mean, we've seen it several times this week already in practice and qualifying. How have you adjusted to that long backstretch, and how far into 3 and 4 will you be ahead of where Kyle's running on the racetrack?
Yeah, and that's something different too that we looked at, that we kind of look at. You kind of spot more, other than super speedway, you kind of spot more out the back in these cup cars, but you do spot out the front way more because of stuff like that happening or guys checking up, right? It's all about, it's kind of a accordion effect. Them guys, they go into the corner, then they try to back their corners up and make runs. So you just kind of pay attention to that. So you'll look, probably 3 or 4 cars in front of him all the way back to him to know, okay, and telling him, hey, this is who they are. And he's learned that in practice. Okay, this is kind of how he runs. Is this guy aggressive? Is this guy not? So you'll look way in front, and we can see in the turn 3 spotter stand, we can see off of 4 right past where the grandstands start. And then obviously off of 2, you see them right past about the short chute, halfway past the short chute, and then off of 2. So you get a good advantage point, and you can see, I will say it's a little tough when they're coming straight on at you, just knowing that closing rate and stuff like that. But Travis has kind of helped me in turn 1, and I've helped him through 3 and 4 because we are looking at it from a side view and can see the run. So we have a spotter channel that we talk to, and we can let each other know, these runs are coming and whatever's out front, right? And that's the biggest thing, just working together, not only on Kyle's channel to tell him, but just me and Travis on this second channel also.
What was this weekend like watching Kyle qualify for the Indy 500? Obviously, we kind of saw over the week how good the McLaren cars were, but I guess qualifying at Indy is its own animal, and Kyle literally made it look so easy. I would have been shocked, honestly, not surprised if he won the pole, but yet he's starting in road 2. So what was the emotions of qualifying day for you?
Man, I told Kyle, I told Jeff Gordon, I told Jeff Andrews, that is more stressful than spotting the car. And I'm not kidding. It's, we didn't have to spot for qualifying. So you were there on the grid, and that very first run that he made, and we had that issue. You're like, oh man, and just, it's hot out. You're sitting there, you're sweating. We're like, really, it's stressful to watch them guys, because it's just not only you got to go make 1 lap and that's fast lap, right? You got to put 4 laps together, and then it's the average speed. So that's way different than what I'm used to and being a part of, but it is stressful. And I knew that we would have speed once we got there, and I'm like, it'd be cool to make the Fast 12. But then, when Sunday came around and we were in the Fast 12 and he went and put a lap down and locked him into the Fast 6, I'm like, man, that's pretty dang good. So
you just have to sit back and watch the greatest driver of our generation, right? And just do his thing.
You just watch him, and you hope that every lap comes and that he don't make any mistakes. And obviously, he hasn't, and he's been very smooth on the wheel. And it's Kyle Larson, right? It's something that he gets in and adapts to, and I'm not surprised that we qualified 5th. I really am not, but it is stressful watching it and how fast they're going. And the biggest thing for me was, when they turned the boost up on Fast Friday, they're probably 15 mile an hour faster than what they usually are, right, in race trim, and you can see it. Like that's what kind of I pulled away from this past week, is just like, man, they are hauling the mail, all by themselves. You just see how fast they are. And, I think the one time we entered in Fast Friday, I think we were 242 into the corner. Yep. And you're just like, holy cow, like, That's way faster than what I'm used to and used to spotting.
Meanwhile, we're in North Wilkesboro and we're 100 mile an hour. So.
I know, yeah. And, he made a joke about, like, feel like you're in a Beetle going to North Wilkesboro compared to these things after qualifying. So, yeah.
Crazy.
So gearing up for your biggest weekend, no doubt, of your career, let's go back to the beginning, though, and kind of talk about what got you involved in this sport. Everybody in the garage has a story. A lot of these spotters have come from local short tracks from across the country, which is, what we talk about here every week on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Bring us back to what initially got you involved into this game.
Yeah, so start from the beginning. As a kid, I grew up, my family, they were into NASCAR. My grandfather was really involved, just watching and I used to go over to their house and watch the races and stuff like that. And I was a huge Terry Labonte fan, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I mean, it's just such a cool story that to be a part of the 5-car now. But big Terry Labonte fan, and then I was always just big into racing. And then my brother, he started racing motocross, and he's 3 years older than me. He started racing motocross. And I wasn't doing any racing, and he kind of talked me into it. So then I went the motocross path. I'm like, I'm going to do that. Started on, on littler bikes, then worked my way up, and then got to 250s. And then 2009, I got in a bad accident. Got lifeline, the whole 9 yards. I was in the hospital for a while. And then I kind of pulled the plug on that, and I said I was just going to go work in racing, dirt racing around the area. So I worked on some late model stuff and sprint car stuff around Williams Grove and Hagerstown and stuff like that. So I did that for a while, and then I made the commitment. I told myself when I graduated high school in 2011 that I would move to North Carolina and I would pursue my dream. And spotting was not even on my radar. It really wasn't. I wanted to be pit crew or a mechanic or something in racing. So I moved down. I went to the pit crew U school, did pit crew. So I pitted for a while from 2011 later that year, and then 2012 I did a whole bunch of pit crew stuff, and then after that 2013 I was kind of doing a mechanic. I was working at a whole bunch of different places, Venturini Motorsports, and then but I was helping Dave Moody that had a late model.
Oh, wow.
Then. Yeah. So Dave Moody, he gives me crap every time, but Dave Moody is the reason why I started spotting. He really is. And so I was working on his late model. We went to Kenley, Southern Nationals, and their spotter couldn't make it or something like that. And they asked me to spot. And I'm like, guys, I never spotted, right? I've listened to it so many times, but I'm like,
that door bumper clear, how hard could that be?
Yeah, right. I'm like, I've listened on the scanner as a kid, going to tracks, just being around it, obviously pitting, still having, earphones in, pitting and listening to them spotters and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I mean, I guess I can do it. So I ended up doing it that night, and the rest is kind of history. It just came natural to me, and they were like, man, you're good. So I started spotting his late model stuff here and there, and just doing it part-time. I was still pitting. I was still working in the shops and stuff like that. And then 2014, I went over to Mason Mitchell Motorsports, and I wasn't spotting for him. I just went over there as a mechanic, and I did a little bit of pit crew stuff with them, and but that was just my daytime job. Then I would spot the weekends we had off. I'd still spot for the late model for Dave and when they'd run, and I'd spot some other late model stuff. And then 2015 came, and I still worked at Mason, and then I went over and started spotting for Austin Wayne Self when he ran for Mason Mitchell. So then that's when spotting got really involved, and did all his still. And then when I went through H. Scott K&N in 2016, just kept doing some ARCA, then did some Xfinity stuff. I think 2017 would have been my first full year in Xfinity. I did Carl Long stuff. So I started from the bottom, and I was just trying to get as much as I could and learn and what I could. And I did a couple cup races for Carl, and then I went to Rick Ware full-time Cup Series for 2 years. And then in 2021, I went with Kyle. So got the call and went with Kyle, which was a very cool story, obviously, in itself. But I do appreciate it. My path in racing, I just, like I said, I was never really looking forward to go, or spotting was not on my radar. It really wasn't. And it just came up one night, like I said, and Dave Minnie, and then it just came natural from there. And I just put all much studying I could just to learn a lot more and hearing other spotters talk, and just knowing like, okay, that, sounds good. And I'm very, very appreciative that I got the time to work at Rick Ware and Carl Long and them, just to learn the path to everything, right? Like, I'm telling you, it's way tougher to spot them cars, in the back. It really is. But I'm very appreciative of them, and I can't thank them enough for giving me the opportunity to have that experience, and to spot for them for 2 or 3 years before I got my first big break. And that all 1 year, I wasn't even going to Hendrick Motorsports. My last year, I'm just rambling on here, but my last year with Rick, I got a call from Jefferson Hodges from Penske.
Yeah.
And I was going to go do Austin Cindric's, 6 to 8 cup races, whatever he was going to do that year to start off. And so I was headed that way. And that was on a Monday, I think. He called me. He's like, hey, I think everything's going to be good. You can fill in for his races. You can do them. And then you can spot the IndyCar stuff, when you're not spotting him.
Oh, so there's potential for IndyCar back then.
There was. So they were just going to put me everywhere, IMSA, wherever it was. I was just going to be their floater guy, right? Just do them 6 to 8 races, whatever it was for Austin Cindric. That was on a Monday. Tuesday came around, I got a call from Virginia, and I'm like, I had a rumor that, the 5 car was looking. I'm like, man, should I answer it? So I answer it, and it's Cliff Daniels. And he's like, hey, Cliff Daniels, we're looking for a spotter. We're kind of interested in you. Are you interested in us? I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. But there is one, speed bump here. I'm like, I'm getting ready to take an offer to Penske. And I said, how soon can you tell me? And he's like, just give me till Thursday. So I called Jefferson back. I'm like, hey, look, here's the deal. And Jefferson was super good about it. And he says, hey, whatever it is, if they offer you a deal, you better take it. Because, Jefferson worked with Kyle back in the Can-Am at Rev Racing and stuff like that. So he said, if you get the opportunity to work with Kyle Larson, you better take it and never look back. So I appreciate it, Jefferson. And we still talk about this story, every time we see each other. I appreciate him being that way to kind of help me and giving me the option to really take that path. So then I don't even think Thursday came. I think it was the next day. Cliff called me, hey, when can you be at the shop? And I'm like, right now. I could be there in 30 minutes, right? I could leave my house and get there. So I did. I walked in there. We sat down. We had a meeting. We talked about all, the race procedures and stuff like that. And him and Kyle listened to my audio from the past. And we had a good talk. And then at the end, nothing was really. I'm like, man, is he going to offer me this deal or what? Like, I'm thinking in my head the whole time. And I'm nervous, right? I'm sitting across from Cliff Daniels. Now I wouldn't say that, right? Me and him work together so good. But I'm sitting beside, across from the desk. I'm at Hendrick Motorsports, dream come true. I'm like, at the end, he's like, any questions for me? I'm like, yeah, when do I get the deal? Is it done, or are you offering this? And he laughed and pulled out a contract and slid it across the table. So it was one of the coolest things ever that has happened to me. And just a story. And like I said, I go back to when I started. I was a huge Terry Labonte fan. I mean, big Terry Labonte fan. I have a picture of me and Terry that I met at Hershey Park.
Yes.
So it was me and him. And then obviously this year we got to run the throwback scheme. So yeah, full circle, it just crazy. And 2021, first year, we go out, win 11 races, count the All-Star race, and then go win the championship. And, I always watch that 5 car all the time. And even when Terry Labonte, retired, I kind of really became a Carl Edwards fan, kind of just followed him a little bit, but I was always a fan of the 5, and even when Casey was in it, and it was just cool. So then when I got to spot that and win a championship with the 5, it was just surreal. All my family was there with me, and I know my family's super happy back home. They still are all in Pennsylvania, and they're very proud of me. And obviously with this double coming up, they support. So I thank all of them, and they've done a great job with me, and just kind of, and my wife, she's very supportive. So it was a long path, but I never looked back, and I'm a person that never quits. And I want to get to the top, and I feel like I made it there, and I'm not going to give up because I just made it there, right? I want to win more races and championships and get the opportunity to spot IndyCar and get the opportunity to work with younger drivers, and it's very cool, through the even ARCA and Truck and Xfinity, helping them guys and seeing them guys. I worked with Noah for a year and a half, and just working with him and seeing his career going. He's running really good at Stewart-Haas, so it's just cool to see them guys, and working with Sammy Smith and Jake Garcia, then Jake Finch and Gio Ruggiero. So I get a whole mix of drivers, so it's cool to work with them and help them make the steps up, and hopefully one day you see all them drivers in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I was going to say, fulfilling for you. You work with, arguably one of the best to ever do it right now in our generation, Kyle, and then you get to go back and kind of use what you've learned working with him to some of these short trackers moving their way up?
Yeah, correct. I get to work with the best driver on Sunday, right? But then just spotting him, listening to him talk, being around him all the time, I can take some of that back and, kind of help these guys out. Anywhere, it don't matter if it's in a truck, ARCA car, or an Xfinity car. So I put a lot of effort into that, right? I want to, like I said, I want to go win championships and win races, and I put all the effort in I can to help them. I want to make them better, and so anytime, through the week, I just don't spot on the weekends. I'm either at shops, I'm leaving here, going to JRM later. It's stuff like that, and calling Jake Garcia, calling Jake Finch, calling Gio Ruggiero, sitting down over at Venturini Motorsports, going over stuff, all that stuff, just to make them better, to know that hopefully I'm helping them, and I feel like I am on that side. So I take a lot from Kyle and try to force it to these guys, and try to make them better every single weekend.
Awesome.
Final question for you. What do you hope Saturday night will look like as you rest and prepare for Sunday, obviously following the Xfinity Series race in Charlotte? What's on the docket right now for Saturday night as you get set for, no doubt, your biggest and busiest and fullest day of your career on Sunday?
Man, I've thought this all week, what's the right thing. So, obviously we'll fly to Indy Saturday night. That way I'm there at the hotel and I can have plenty of rest. And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm going to try to lay low and try to just kind of look over some things, even on the airplane flying there, and just getting my brain right and get a good night's rest, because it is an early morning that Sunday, obviously getting to the racetrack and everything else. So I've watched some film. I got watched some film over the last couple IndyCar races and stuff like that, to get my mind right, to know how it plays out. Like, it turns into a fuel strategy deal, and right, it's the fastest pit stop at the end and get you out front. If you're in the top 5, you have a shot at winning the Indy 500. So it's just looking at that and just knowing, and looking at restarts. A lot of inboard cameras, restarts over in turn 3, like how do they work? How do they, how all that just kind of goes. So I'm going to do a lot of studying. I have all week, and I haven't even forgot about Charlotte. I've done a ton of studying yesterday, looking over Charlotte stuff and my notes. I'm getting ready to go to a competition meeting after this for Charlotte this weekend on the Xfinity side. So there's a lot going on, but after Saturday night, after that's all done, I'm just my focus will be for the Indy 500, and then obviously I'll have the Coke 600 after that. But I just want to be good, I just don't want to make any mistakes, right? And any way I can help Kyle through the Indy 500, that's what I want to do. So I'm trying to put a lot of studying in, trying to get the names right, and I'm pretty sure I'm there. So I still got a little bit to work there, but I'm excited for it, like I said, and then just trying to get sleep. That's the biggest thing. I'm hopefully we can get to Indy at a decent time and grab some food and get to bed and wake up at whatever time it is, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and get over there and just prepare myself, have my brain right, and that's probably what that's going to look like. And hopefully I can do the right things and be good for Sunday.
Well, enjoy it. I know you're going to have time to reflect on this experience afterwards, but just soak it all in as somebody who's done it so many times at the Indy 500 and been there as a fan. It's unlike anything else you're going to experience, so just soak it all in, but enjoy the moment. And also, we've learned from this conversation, Dave Moody, your check will be in the mail when they win the Indy 500 as a thank you for getting him into spotting.
He has told me every time I see him, that 10% kickback. Yeah, truly, he got me where I was, and he is a huge movement of me spotting. So, thank you, Dave Moody, and one of these days I'll give you your 10% kickback.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Tyler Monn getting ready to do the double with Kyle Larson, spotting for him at both Indianapolis and Charlotte. Appreciate you coming in. We've got the schedule and some news and notes before we wrap up this week's episode of Coast to Coast, so stick around. We'll be right back.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering. Kyle, what a great conversation. Really cool to sit down and talk with a guy who's about to do something that not a lot of people get to do, and that's do the double. And I thought it was a really interesting perspective on, kind of his approach. We've obviously heard from Kyle so far across the channel, but not yet his spotter and what he's going through too.
I love those full circle stories.
Yeah.
Big fan growing up of Terry Labonte, the 5 team at Hendrick Motorsports, and now here he is. In one of the more crucial roles with that team, and has championships, driving with one of the greatest drivers that we have seen in this generation, all courtesy of Dave Moody.
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have ever guessed that 20 minutes ago? But great story, and hope he and Kyle and the entire team both teams have great weekends or a great weekend this weekend.
Absolutely. So thank you, Tyler, for joining us. Of course, some news and notes this week. Dean Thompson's going to be doing the Xfinity race with Sam Hunt, triple duty this weekend, ARCA trucks. Oh, by the way, and now Xfinity's on his plate at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So congrats to Dean for inking that deal. Johnny Clark made a milestone this week in short track racing, 50th career pass series win out at White Mountain, his 7th win at that racetrack in particular. And by the way, Jeff Striegel apparently starting he didn't start it, but somebody on iRacing started a petition for Jeff Striegel's Berlin Raceway to be on iRacing. So if you're a fan of Berlin, we are here at the Motor Racing Network. Sign the petition online. Let's get it on iRacing, the ultimate platform for sim racing, and we can do some laps and maybe one day challenge Jeff at a lap in a late model around Berlin Raceway. That would be something. But Kyle, let's get to the calendar this week. Obviously, we talked about all that's going on in Indy. Charlotte's the place to be with Coke 600 weekend. It kicks off Friday. Motor Racing Network. Yours truly will be a part of that broadcast with the ARCA Menard Series, the General Tire 150 at Charlotte. Entry list coming out as we speak, but I can assume all of our championship favorites will be in the mix, including a driver who's trying to go 2 for 2 in his starts this year, and that's Connor Mosack, your winner at Kansas, looking to go win it again with Pinnacle this weekend. Thoughts about Charlotte? It's a mile and a half. It's tricky for some, but provides good racing.
It'll be interesting to see the entry list. You always get one or two of those series drivers or Xfinity series drivers that like to go play in ARCA. I think it was Grant Enfinger last year that jumped in an ARCA car on Friday night and did well. 5 different winners in the first 5 races, the most competitive start to an ARCA season that we have seen in quite some time. You have drivers like a Chris Wright that is looking for that win. Amber Balkin, she's had a couple of weeks now to heal up from that foot injury in Dover. We'll see if she's back at 100%, ready to go. She was strong at the Charlotte Motor Speedway last year. Always a great night and a great way to kick off the busy race weekend in Charlotte with that Friday night doubleheader under the lights.
That's right, 6 p.m. on MRN. Tanner Gray going to be back in the JGR Toyota. He was close at Kansas, could be a player as well. Cars Tour at Tri-County this weekend. Obviously didn't get to race in North Wilkesboro. Connor Hall, 4 top 5 finishes this year, continues to lead the points over Carson Quapple with his 2 wins. Kyle, though, I would assume Carson Quapple will be back to doing Carson Quapple things at Tri-County. Butterbean looking for a rebound as well. You have a favorite in this one?
Well, I mean, you got to go with Carson Quapple, although I think Butterbean has a lot of momentum and confidence on his side right now, like we talked about with his Truck Series debut last weekend at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Has a lot of momentum, and I'm sure he'll carry that into this weekend.
100%. Smart Modifieds also on the calendar for this weekend, Kyle, at Franklin County on Friday night. It's been, a month since they've been in action, obviously timing their schedule with the opening of Bowman Gray. Was it time for Carson Lofton maybe to cool off after his 4 victories to open the season, or does he pick right back up where he's left off there last time out, currently leading the points by 40 over Luke Baldwin?
Yeah, 4 wins in 6 races. Pretty impressive start for that second-generation driver of Carson Lofton. They have not raced since April 13th at Hickory. I think it's a good time for him to probably start another streak this weekend.
Yeah, I would say it's about time. Again, that's on Friday night. And, of course, this being Memorial Day weekend, the USAC Carb Night Classic at IRP. We've got the Hoosier 100 there as well. You got the Little 500 at Anderson. So all that short track racing going on in Indianapolis. But also you guys are in action on Friday at Stafford, Autodrome, Granby, Slinger, Bowman Gray, you name it. Everyone loves to race on Memorial Day weekend, of course, as we honor those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. But get out and support your local short track. Kyle, final thoughts and your driver of the week before we cap this week's episode.
I am going to go out of the NASCAR realm this week.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest stories from this past weekend, you mentioned USAC a moment ago, Kaylee Bryson getting the win in the USAC Silver Crown Series. First female to win on the national stage for USAC, picking up that win at Belleville. She'll be back in action this weekend, held off some of the best in CJ Leary and Mario Klauser. So it was only a matter of time before Kaylee got that win, and it happened this past weekend.
Congratulations. It was fun to watch. Ripping the Silver Crown car at Belleville is not easy, and she made it look so.
Nope.
So congratulations to Kaylee. MRN is on the air this week, and of course from Charlotte, it's a quick one for us, Friday only, with the ARCA Menard Series at 6 p.m., and then we'll turn right around and go truck racing out at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at 8 p.m. airtime. Both of those races can be heard on MRN. Well, what a great episode. I'm also going to try to take part in the double. Going to go from Charlotte to Indianapolis to go to another Indianapolis 500, praying for no rain. Kyle, enjoy your weekend at Stafford. And, of course, everybody at home, enjoy your short track racing weekend. For our producer, Pat Jaggers, my name is Chris Wilner and Kyle Rickey. Thanks for tuning in to Coast to Coast, brought to you by Wheelin' Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Have a great weekend and a safe Memorial Day weekend.